So we've been reporting extensively from inside Israel, and now we're going to be heading into Palestinian territory to get you voices from the other side as well and see what the mood is there. Remember, the West Bank has come under attack during this cycle of violence. There have been airstrikes in Jenin, where I'd been reporting from. So we're crossing over the Judea Mountains, this ancient land that remains a deep division between Israel and Palestine. We've entered Palestinian territory now. What you can see atop that hill is one particular Jewish settlement where we've just crossed the border, and we're now firmly inside Palestinian territory, and we're heading towards the city of Ramallah. That might seem a familiar name to many of you. That is the administrative and de facto capital of the Palestinian territories. It's also the city of Yasser Arafat. His mausoleum is also in that city. So we're headed to the city now of Ramallah. We've entered Palestine, and we're going to try and get voices from the other side and let you, the viewers, see what the Palestinian territories look like, feel like, and how things are going there in that nerve center of the West Bank and the Palestinian territories, in light of what's happening many kilometers away on the Gaza Strip. I'm standing now in the ancient city of Jerusalem, which, as you know, is divided between Israel and the Palestinian territories. Both sides claim Jerusalem as their real historical capital. I'm standing, in fact, at a particularly historic crossing point called the Damascus Gate. That's the symbol you see behind me. It's a structure that leads to other parts of the Palestinian territories. You can also see a huge deployment of Israeli police and security forces. You can see some of them in my frame. There are many more down the road from where we've come just now from Tel Aviv. But this particular Damascus Gate has become an enduring symbol of the Palestinian struggle, that has become a focal point at this point of time. We're expecting that a little later from now there could be huge protests as well. This road that I'm standing on has been a notorious site for clashes between Palestinians and the Israeli police. Many people have been arrested last year, between 2020 and 2021 and 22, I beg your pardon. About 25 people were arrested right here on this site just behind me. So it's a restive place. It's become symbolic of a place where violent demonstrations have taken place. Riots have taken place as well. So we're at that crossing point, and we're going to be venturing into Palestinian territories like we have been over the week here on India Today, to get you a perspective also from the other side. Walking now through the old city, just past the Damascus Gate, deeper towards the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And, this is a complicated history, one of the most ancient cities in the world. But this is a part of Jerusalem that has seen a great deal of tension. This is, remember, the old city of Jerusalem, and there can be no two ways about it. This is a conflict that has gone on for too long. Much of it sentimentally, emotionally, historically is centered around Jerusalem. The Palestinian people regard this as Israeli occupied territory of their lands, and we're just walking through this place because many people live here quite normally. If you go into the interiors, which we will be very shortly, you see much more of the actual anger, and we're actually expecting to see some tensions a little later, since it's Friday. So after prayers there may be some tensions, so we're waiting to see if we can capture some of that. But there's a huge amount of security deployment everywhere in this particular place, so we're going to continue to report. I've just arrived at the Kalandia border, on the Palestinian side of the Kalandia border. which is now shut. This divides the Palestinian territories from Israel. This used to be a major crossing point for thousands of people from the Palestinian territories working in Israel and then coming back. But it has been shut as a result of recent tensions. A person is said to have been killed here a few days ago as well. You can see a mural behind me, very recognizable face of the patriarch of Palestine, as it were, Yasser Arafat. Lots of graffiti there about the Palestinian struggle as well. So this wall, once again, and walls, remember, are an enduring symbol as far as Palestine is concerned. And you will see many of them as we travel through Palestine and show you these pictures. But the Kalandia border has now become an emblem of its very own.
Just the just the tomb.
Yes,
Go
just,
down.
yeah, just the tomb. Yeah. Okay, looks like we're being allowed through to shoot Arafat's tomb. Lots, as you can imagine, plenty of security in this place. So, for justifiable reasons, as we make our way now into this high security area. This is where all the government offices of the Palestinian Authority are. So this is like a VIP area. We've just been given permission to enter the memorial of Yasser Arafat. We're in the heart of Ramallah. This is the administrative, commercial and de facto capital of the Palestinian Authority. Most people aren't allowed here at all, but we've decided to just make our way here because this is in many ways the kind of spiritual epicenter of the Palestinian movement. It's Friday, you can hear prayers from the mosques nearby as well and the loudspeakers. And this here is the mausoleum. What you can see behind me is the mausoleum itself. So we're going to go inside and just have a look. This is a sacred site as far as the Palestinian people are concerned. This is where Yasser Arafat, the patriarch of the Palestinian movement and struggle, still considered a man who did perhaps more than any other figure, controversial figure, no doubt, but someone who perhaps did more than any other figure for the Palestinian movement. Remember that Yasser Arafat was someone who was involved in the Oslo Accords of 1993. They were mediated by Bill Clinton, who was the US president at that time. The Oslo Accords were widely seen at that time as something which could have brought to an end, the terrible cycle of violence between Israel and Palestine. In 1994, in fact, both Yasser Arafat and then Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres had won jointly the Nobel Peace Prize, for the Oslo Accords, for that historic handshake between Israel and Palestine, which could have ended, decades of bloodshed and tension between the two sides. Sadly, very, very shortly after the intifadas began, each side began to blame the other for various betrayals, various divergences from the promises that were made during the Oslo Accords, and therefore, finally, at the end, everything collapsed. Given the many things that Yasser Arafat at least tried to do, he would be a very disappointed man, given what he's seeing today. His mausoleum is guarded at all times by a soldier. It's a mark of respect that's extended to the patriarch of the Palestinian movement by the current administration. Remember, the Fatah organization was founded by Yasser Arafat. He created that movement not really as a political party, but more as a movement, and that's why it's still called the Fatah movement. The Fatah is a political party that opposes the Hamas. The Hamas is in power, politically speaking, in Gaza. Yasser Arafat also, for quite a few years of his life, lived in Gaza City, as a matter of fact. So these two territories under, Palestinian Authority, if he lived to see this day, I sometimes wonder what he would have thought. Now we're headed now deeper into Ramallah because a former minister of the Palestinian administration has agreed to meet us and speak to us. We're going to get some more voices as well. He's someone who is regarded as a famous poet. I've known him from before during my university days. He's also a professor, and we're going to be speaking to him along with some others to tell you what I said we were going to do, to get you voices from the other side. Now remember, here in India today, we're reporting what we see, what we hear, both from Israel as well as Palestine. You've seen all of our reportage from Israel, and you will continue to do so in the days and the weeks ahead. And now we're getting you some voices from inside the administrative capital of Palestine. And joining me now is a person whose name is Ahab Basaiso. He isn't just any politician. He's a person who's been a minister in a Palestinian government not very long ago. He's regarded as one of Palestine's foremost poets. He's also a professor at the Bethlehem University, and he's agreed to see us here in Ramallah. Continuing with the conversation, Ahab, how does one see what happened on October the 7th by Hamas, if not as a terror attack?
Well, in order not to be trapped in the question of violence and the condemnation and the circle of condemnation, what I wanted to say, put things into the context. Gaza was subjected to several bombardments and incursions in the past. In 2021, there was no 7th of October. In 2018, there was no 7th of October. In 2014, there was no 7th of October. In 2012, there was no 7th of October. And in 2008, there was 7th of October. The amount of victims who've been killed as a result of the Israeli bombardments on Gaza actually exceeds the number of 10,000 people during all these wars. This, let alone what is happening right now in Gaza, which is, till we speak now, the death toll is about more than 7,000 people that they were killed by the indiscriminate shelling. Now, the question about, we need to put it into a political context. There is an occupation, and this occupation is using all the forces and the measures against the Palestinian people to undermine the right of an independent state. Having said this, it doesn't mean that the Palestinians, they are kind of killing cheer holders or something, or just waving for this. The Palestinians in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem and in Gaza, they are just seeking some kind of an international acknowledgement of their pain over the last 56 years, and they just wanted a courageous statement by the international community to say, well, the Palestinians, they deserve their own state. Enough is enough in the occupation, and adhere to international community. So this is the wider context that I think what the Israeli government right now is trying to do is just to shift the public opinion, or the international public opinion, from the question of occupation.
How do you see that? How do you respond as a Palestinian to Israel saying that what we are doing now is in response to Hamas, not the Palestinian people?
Well, I'll be very honest and frank with you on this. We will try to borrow some of the experiences from the past. When the Americans in 2001, they started their bombardment of Afghanistan, they said the same. They said it's not about the Afghan people, it's about the Taliban. To figure out, after 20 years, they sat with the Taliban and they set an agreement with the Taliban after a few years. Yeah. They did it with Iraq. Yeah. They said this is not a war with the Iraqis, this is a war with Saddam Hussein. And eventually, the whole killing and the whole misery of the Iraqis, it's still paying the price till now. What I want to say, this is something of a part of a communication strategy. It's part of the deceiving of the whole international public opinion about the core of the issue, which is occupation. We heard from Mr. Biden, the American president, and many of international prime ministers and presidents that they are with a two-state solution. Yeah. Perfect.
Including India.
Including India. Perfect. Okay. What are the measures that need to be taken in order to implement a United Nations resolutions and in order to have the two-state solution? This is a very simple question. Yeah. It's not enough just to issue a statement that I'm supporting a two-state solution. We have to see it on the ground. So seeing it on the ground is something that what we need is to put some pressure on this Israeli government, the occupation government of Palestine, to say, well, implement United Nations resolutions and grant these Palestinians their right to live as normal human beings in the world, and to allow them to have at least some kind of a confidence of the future that the international community is respecting their desire to have their own state in Palestine.
There is suspense over a ground invasion, which has happened twice before, 2009 and 2014, as you know. Where are things going? How do people in Palestine see how this is going to be? Because the sense is this is going to make things much worse. But how do you see it playing out?
Well, I think it is now the Palestinian question has been linked to regional and international a lot of political interest, and we cannot just ignore this fact. We could see that the veto being issued yesterday by the Russians and the Chinese against the American veto earlier. So this is something of a wider international conflict. We cannot see what is happening in Palestine in vacuum or from what's happening in the world, particularly the Russian-Ukrainian war. What is the role of Europe and American in this kind of a conflict? We cannot even separate it from regional interest in Iran and a lot of regional powers. So it's either we try to say that the Palestinian cause, this pain should end, and then there should be awakening in the international community's politics to say, well, at least this is something might to trigger more of a conflict in the region, not only in Palestine and Israel. It also might conduct a lot of issues even in the Arab region. You heard about the attacks on American bases in Iraq, in Syria, now things about the Red Sea and Yemen. So this is something it's somehow need to be addressed with wisdom. I think back an urgency to say back to the table of politics and then discussing how to end the occupation. President Abbas said it a few times on the platform of the United Nations. I mean, now there's nothing to negotiate about. It's about the role of the international community to say, give me a time schedule to end occupation, and that's all about it. And I think we are calling upon all the people, not saying not only the friends of Palestine, we're calling upon the people in the international community to say justice should prevail by the fact that this pain should end.
Perhaps the only way this cycle of violence that's been on for so many decades can end is if there is an incentive for the international community. We're seeing the beginnings of that beyond just the Arab world, beyond just the region and Asia. If there are direct, quantifiable incentives to a lasting mutual solution between Israel and Palestine, that is perhaps the only way that something can actually happen. For the moment, October the 7th and Israel's response in Gaza has focused the world's attention once again. For how long it'll last, we don't know. We've seen violence happen before. The media has been in this area in their thousands, and then they all go away, and then everything just starts all over again. Hopefully, this time, it won't be the case. Ehab, thank you very much for speaking to India today. Your voice will go out to millions, and we've been getting voices from both sides over the last few days. Let's hope people are listening, and let's hope for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're in the West Bank right now, and this is one of the many impromptu protests that break out, demonstration marches that take place this Friday, and we've just found ourselves caught in one right now as we were making our way out of the West Bank. Now remember, compared to Gaza, the West Bank has largely been peaceful. Unlike the Hamas in the West Bank, unlike the Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank is governed by Fatah, the Palestinian Authority here in the city of Ramallah. This time in the West Bank, however, unusually there have been at least 2 airstrikes. There's been 1 drone strike. We're told over 100 people have been killed here as well, which is unusual in the West Bank. So we're just trying to get a sense of where this protest is headed. It's Friday. Usually after Friday prayers, there are demonstrations. There are lots of little kids, old people, women, children, toddlers of all kinds here. And sorry. Just getting a sense. Lots of people here in this particular protest. Like I said, here on India Today, we've been reporting from both sides of this and to get you the voices. The one thing we've learned reporting from both Israel and Palestine over the last 1 week is that fierce positions in this terrible and long-lasting conflict are difficult to sustain. There are humans on both sides. Innocent Israelis were massacred on October the 7th, and innocent Palestinians have been killed in the reprisal by Israel. From the outside, as an outsider with no real skin in the game, it becomes more complicated as you report from here. Yesterday I was in the south of Israel seeing some of the worst destruction at the hands of Hamas terrorists. And now you've got voices from here in the Palestinian territories. The only channel that brings you both sides, brings you voices here and tells you to decide for yourself. I urge all of our viewers, and I've done this throughout my coverage here, resist the temptation to take fierce sides in this terrible war. Many things have been said and done over the years, but suffering continues to take place on both sides. The Palestinian people look to India to play a bigger role. Will that happen? We don't really know. All we do know is that what happened on October the 7th has probably made things infinitely worse for the people here. We're now in the heart of Ramallah, the administrative and de facto capital of Palestine. And as you've no doubt noticed, that there is a bust behind me of none other than Mahatma Gandhi. This is a bust that was installed here many, many years ago. And Gandhi finds pride of place here in Ramallah, is a revered figure like he is everywhere else in the world as well. But especially here in this administrative capital of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian Authority, Gandhi holds a very special place because he symbolizes the close relationship, diplomatic relationship that India has had, the many projects that India has here in Ramallah. There's a school here. There is a road named after Nehru here. There's a lot of Indian linkages in terms of government-linked projects that happen here with India's help. And therefore, this small bust of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi represents that link. You know, we've spent the day here in the West Bank speaking to the Palestinian people, speaking to key figures. Many of them didn't want to speak on camera for obvious reasons, but they believe that India will hold or play a great role in what happens going forward. They believe that India's past links with Palestine, its concerted and very deliberate foreign policy which supports a two-state solution and a lasting mutual solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict means that India has a very, very serious role to play. And they all are unanimous on one stand. They believe that India will have an outsized role to play in what happens going forward. They believe India is no longer just a side player. They believe India must step up, use its influence, whether to broker peace, whether to use its influence with Israel and other countries to play a much larger role than it has in the past. Could that be represented by this bust of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi behind me? We don't really know. But there are expectations from India, and the aspirations of the Palestinian people are very much linked to those. In Ramallah, Palestine, Shiv Aroor for India Today.